Welcome to my channel Techify with Adil. So today in this video we will be discussing about the next topic in our Azure Fundamentals playlist. Describe features and tools for managing and deploying Azure resources. This will be our next section and we will describe the tools for interacting with Azure, then the purpose of Azure Arc, then Azure Resource Manager and Azure ARM templates under this section. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe, share and like my videos. You can watch my playlist for Azure Fundamentals if you want to do certification or if you want to gain knowledge in Azure Fundamentals. Let us move on to our video for today. Okay, under the tools, to get the most out of Azure, you need a way to interact with the Azure environment, the management group, subscription, resources group, resources and so on. Azure provides multiple tools for managing your environment, including Azure Portal, Azure PowerShell, Azure command line interface. So we know we have in Azure environment, we have management group, subscription, resource groups and everything. So if once you are able to interact with all those environment very easily, only then you can get the most output from that. So far in our video we have seen the exercise lab, and also in the initial part of accessing to the Azure we have discussed more about this Azure Portal, Azure PowerShell and command line interface. So here we will be discussing in detail about those tools. First will be Azure Portal. So this Azure Portal is a web-based unified console that provides an alternative to command line tools. With the Azure Portal, you can manage your Azure subscription by using a graphical user interface. So using this, you can build, manage and monitor everything from simple web apps to complex cloud deployments. Create custom dashboards for an organized view of resources. Configure accessibility options for an optimal experience. The Azure Portal is designed for resiliency and continuous availability. It maintains a presence in every Azure data center. This configuration makes the Azure Portal resilient to individual data center failures and avoids network slowdowns by being close to the users. The Azure Portal updates continuously and requires no downtime for maintenance activities. So important thing about Azure Portal is usually it's since it's a web based, so we might have a question like if will that be having any downtime, or will that have any difference in accessing, like speed of accessing, since I'm located in a different location, or I'm located not in a prime location, so there might be it might take a longer time in accessing to the website. So to answer all these questions is no, there will be no downtime, and from wherever you are accessing to it, you will be accessing it with good network speed, as you will be accessing to the nearest users, nearest center. Even if there is a data center failure or any kind of down maintenance happening, still the users who are accessing to the portal will access it as normally. They will not feel any difference of it. So that's one of the biggest advantage of using the Azure Portal. So let us see some details about in a video.
The Azure Portal is your one-stop graphical management solution for creating, configuring, and controlling all your Azure services and subscriptions. The portal makes it easy to create resources through a wizard-like environment, from something as simple as a website to a geographically redundant database to a full Kubernetes cluster. Once you have resources created, the portal lets you adjust the various parameters and settings for your resources, add users to your cloud-based Active Directory, implement security policies, and plan backup schedules. You can personalize your portal experience through custom dashboards that you create to see the data that is most important to you. Within the portal, you can start and stop services as needed. You can scale your services by adding or removing resources from your subscription according to your business needs. You can also monitor the health of your applications, track your costs and billing status, analyze the performance of your applications in real time, or create reports for in-depth analysis. The Azure Portal is your gateway to managing everything in your Azure subscription. Whether you are creating new resources, configuring existing resources, or controlling Azure services, the Azure Portal is your place to manage your company's business on Azure.
Okay, next we will be seeing about Azure Cloud Shell. So Azure Cloud Shell is a browser-based shell tool that allows you to create, configure and manage Azure resources using a shell. Azure Cloud Shell support both Azure PowerShell and Azure command line interface, which is a bash shell. You can access Azure Cloud Shell via Azure Portal by selecting the Cloud Shell icon. So this icon. Azure Cloud Shell has several features that make it a unique offering to support you in managing Azure. Some of the features are: it is a browser-based shell experience with no local installation or configuration required. It is authenticated to your Azure credentials, so when you log in, it inherently knows you are and what permission you have. You choose the shell you are most familiar with. Azure Cloud Shell supports both Azure PowerShell and Azure CLI. So actually, when in the Azure fundamentals playlist, in the earlier videos when we did exercise, so I have shown you in that video you can watch. I have shown the access to Azure Cloud Shell. So once we are into Azure Portal, and there will be option to go into Azure Cloud Shell. So just clicking on the option, it will open the another screen which will be a command line interface kind. So that will not have a separate authentication because already I am into Azure PowerShell, Azure Portal, which is logged in with my Azure account. So once I am moving to Azure Cloud Shell, it auto authenticates based on the portal login. So straight away log into the Cloud Shell. Then from there I can use the command line to manage the resources, like create, configure, or whatever managing you need to do with your resources, you can do using the Cloud Shell there. Next will be Azure PowerShell. So Azure PowerShell is a shell which developers, DevOps and IT professionals can run commands called commandlets. These commands call the Azure REST API to perform management tasks in Azure. Commandlets can be run independently to handle one-off changes, or they may be combined to have orchestrate complex actions such as routine setup, tear down and maintenance of a single resource or multiple connected resource, deployment of an entire infrastructure which might contain dozens or hundreds of resources from imperative code. Capturing the commands in a script makes the process repeatable and automatable. In addition to available via Azure Cloud Shell, you can install and configure Azure PowerShell on Windows, Linux and Mac platforms as well. So this Azure PowerShell is mostly used by developers, DevOps and IT professionals. So using this, they can easily run these kind of complex actions, like you can deploy an entire infrastructure which might contain dozens of hundreds of resources with imperative code. So once you set up everything, then you can just create a entire infrastructure. Even you can use DevOps to set up. For example, you can do a setup coding in the background already. So once you have to create a server, for example, so it will just, you can input the details, like I want it in this what network and what under what OS and details, some the details it requires. Once you are given, it will just up your server, and it will connect the connections whatever you have given, and it will straight away set up the infrastructure for you. So we can do this complex actions with just coding once. So it's going to be a one-time effort. So once you have prepared it, then anytime you need to prepare up your server or create a new server, just you can use the same process. So such kind of things can be easily achieved by using Azure PowerShell. Then Azure CLI. The Azure CLI is a functionality equivalent to Azure PowerShell, with the primary difference being the syntax of the commands. While Azure PowerShell uses PowerShell commands, CLI uses bash commands. The Azure CLI provides the same benefits of handling discrete tasks or orchestrating complex operations through code. It's also installable on Windows, Linux, and Mac platforms as well as through Azure Cloud Shell. Due to similarities in capabilities and access between Azure PowerShell and Bash-based Azure CLI, it mainly comes down which language you are most familiar with. Also, we have shown the difference of this in my previous video. Like we can switch actually in the Azure Cloud Shell. You will be, once you are into Azure Cloud Shell, then you can able to switch between the Azure PowerShell and CLI. So there you can I have in my previous video shown the command to write in Azure PowerShell and the similar action to be performed in CLI as well. So you can check on my previous video. I will also mention it in the description.